for a little while. Maybe, oh maybe, we'll watch the sun go down. And maybe, oh maybe, we'll decide to stick around. And maybe we won't, and decide to take a walk. And you and I will ponder as we wander, as we walk.
Welcome to Ponder While We Wander. We're two friends who happen to be therapists go on a walk as we discuss relationships, nature, and meet life in the moment. Each episode is grounded in some aspect of eco-psychology, but can take us anywhere as we ponder while we wander. And you're invited to come along.
And you and I will ponder as we wander, as we walk.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Amber. Come on into this place here. We are at the Price Sculpture Forest here in Whidbey Island.
We are, and as we just walked into the park, we walked under this archway, a threshold. I think is great for this episode. This is Wander in Wonder.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the sign here says, welcome, you're entering an experiment in habitat preservation, art, and community. The Sculpture Forest honors nature's artistry in relation to human creativity. It is alive with discovery of sculpture nestled in an ecosystem. The Sculpture Forest exists to provide you a relaxing and informative outdoor experience. You are encouraged to wander, ponder, and interact.
Didn't even know that was going to be there.
Family created this park in collaboration with sculptors and volunteers. A nonprofit organization manages the park's long-term maintenance and growth. Visit their website. It's sculptureforest.org. So this fits very well into the theme of what we're doing here. I love they called it Nature Nurtured, which is a flat trail, and the Whimsy Way, which is a gentle slope trail.
Beautiful.
So we'll just wander around and ponder creativity. Creativity is not a luxury. This is not a phrase that we came up with, but lots of people have been using. I tend to find it used in like capitalistic marketing terms and like leadership ways, where you got to be creative to get something done.
Some monetary output or
right.
productivity increase.
Yes, I would like to co-opt that back to just all around in general, that creativity is important individually and in community, and both in kind of a healing, metabolizing way, and also for problem solving for the complexities that we find ourselves in these days.
Yeah, it's for all of us. It's for every person, whether you might feel like you have to call yourself something like an artist or a musician or a painter, a sculptor. You feel like you have to have a title to claim that or not. I'm here to tell you, you do not. Creativity is for all of us. And I guarantee every person has some way that they engage creatively.
Yes. When I think of creativity, I like that there are three things that are generally associated with creativity. And it's a combination of imagination, divergent thinking, and insight.
I like it.
And if you think of that as more of a skill set and not like a natural born talent or a sense of artistry, but you think of creativity as a combination of these skills or set of way of being, I think that it becomes more accessible. That, like you said, it's for everybody.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, coming from a Jungian-informed training in my psychotherapy education, creativity is deeply connects us and gives us access to, psyche, soul, the language of the unconscious. And so in that realm as well, there's really profound ways that we can access healing because it's creative, because it's maybe not verbal or only talking. The other ways into our healing and our meaning making that can be really powerful.
Yes. Yeah. I had a list of the ways that creativity shows up in our humanity. And I think it fits into what you're saying, kind of the purpose of creativity within our human species. And you feel free to add to this list as we pull over here for a second. The foundation of animalia and fungi. Love it. There are these two legs that are carved out of wood and painted.
Mid-stride.
Here, mid-stride, yeah. So here's a partial list. That creativity can help us with meaning making, definitely with healing, both individually and collectively. Connecting, it is the basis for empathy. We have to be able to imagine somebody else's experience in order to even have that kind of empathy. It is also used for adaptive problem solving. You can't always manualize that problem solving. Creativity, we also see as a primary form of language, of learning, especially for kids in terms of play, creative play, unstructured creative play, and also for emotional regulation. We use creativity, or can use those muscles of creativity. We can learn through story. You and I talk a lot about story, and I'm sure that'll come up later with us. And there's also an element of cultural appreciation and the transmission of culture through creativity and creative endeavors. Is there anything else that I missed or that you can think of?
It's a pretty robust list. I think, I can't remember if you mentioned this, because that's how my brain works sometimes, but this sort of metabolizing quality too, like it can really help us metabolize experiences and, express ourselves. Like how many times, we even heard the phrase, like a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Like there's something in, I'm thinking of images right now as a form of creativity, but a picture or something that someone painted or captured, or there can be so much meaning that's held in something that's been created.
I think music is another one of those languages of creativity. And I know that for me, music can evoke memory and emotion. And it can also be a way for me to express. A lot of times there'll just be a song in my head and it happens to coincide with whatever's happening in that moment. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. And then you and I have worked on creative songs and creating music together. And I guess that's a segue into why creativity might be hard for some people.
In what sense when you're thinking of that?
I think, do you have to sit on this bench here with me? Yeah. So I was thinking of the myths that people have about creativity and that they're just not talented, or like you and I were walking the other day out of an art store, and we were talking about how you would like to learn to paint, and I reminded you that you already know how to paint. But there is this idea that if we don't hone that somehow we aren't sanctioned to create or to play or to try, or and sometimes it's that sense of failure or the fear of failure of trying something new, and also that perfectionism of I can't see my way to the end of something, like I can't see how this is going to materialize all the way, that we tend to stop ourselves. So I think there are a lot of ways that our creativity gets stifled. If we get too in our head, if we are thinking about somebody who's going to look at this or hear this or judge us on something, there's lots of ways that our creativity can get stifled.
Lots of ways. Yeah. And sometimes creativity sort of asks us to follow a feeling, a sensation, some intuition, right? There is I think the part of what feels really important about creativity to me is it's this process. It's the process of doing it. It's not the output. And I think, that's what we're kind of repeatedly saying in many different ways, is that, a lot of times there can be so much focus on the output or like who decides what it is, that it takes us away from the process. And the process, I think, is where really a lot of the magic is in whatever endeavor that might be for you. I mean, I even think of my kids, they playing outside, like making potions, collecting sticks and twigs. I mean, usually they want to take the spices from my spice drawer. So I have to give them little small dishes of that. But they're engaged in creating, like they've transported themselves to another realm in a sense, where there's a lot of freedom and freedom of expression and, starting something, you don't know what it's going to always turn out to be, but you get to enjoy the process along the way.
Yeah, I think we all can think back in the times of like, when did we stop playing imaginal play? When did we stop dancing or singing, or just even if it's not singing, making those like noises with our voice in imaginal play? When did we stop painting or coloring or drawing? Because all of those things are things and ways that kids process, and we normalize that, we sanction that, and then somewhere along the way something happens, and a lot of us get disconnected from those processes.
Yeah, right. As a kid, a lot of times it's like I feel like part of that's like just our true essence, right? Like we're willing to like go for it. We, kids see the world so imaginatively, creatively, and I just go for it. I was thinking even of the example you were talking about when we walked out of the art store the other day, and I was like, oh, I love to paint. Later on we were talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, there was a point in my life when I was a lot younger that I did draw a lot, and I didn't have this same kind of distance from it of like, oh, I'm not this or I'm not that. It was like, oh, I enjoy this. I'm interested in this. I'm practicing this. I'm creating this. Those. So I love that question you were asking of like, when did that stop for us, or when did we shift out of that? I hear that a lot. With drawing, I have heard that a lot of times with different people that I know personally. They're like, oh, I used to do this, or I was so into it, and then fill in the blank.
Yeah, it could be that we didn't have access to materials, and then we just kind of gave up, or we didn't get encouragement, or some of us even got the opposite of encouragement. We got criticized, even if it was jokingly. But that creativity, especially I think when you're trying something new, when you're being vulnerable with it, it can be very fragile. And one comment from somebody, I remember somebody coming in and saying, I can't sing. I remember my dad telling me I'm not a good singer. And we deduced that the dad was probably joking at the time, but that was just enough for this one human to never sing again or make it very difficult to sing. And I remember for myself, I don't think it was anybody actually telling me I couldn't sing. I think there was a vulnerability in it. And I always liked to sing in groups. It's a lot more forgiving, especially if you aren't going to hit the tone or you don't know the word or something, right? Like there's all these elements that come up that you can just kind of fade into the background a little bit more. But to sing and use your voice individually where you can hear it in front of other people and not just in the shower or the car, like that's something different. And I remember it wasn't until I started playing guitar in my 30s that was kind of the entryway for me. The teacher that I had at the time, he was encouraging me to also sing while I was playing. And here I am. I understand anxiety. I understand all these things, but it was so difficult. And I just am very grateful for my instructor at the time, Hayden, who kind of pushed me a little bit more and provided a really safe space. It was in my own living room. And I remember singing out loud to him for the first time, very softly, and weeping. It was such a vulnerable moment. And then just continuing to practice that. It's a skill set. It's something that you can learn. It's something that you can show up for yourself
and
with.
something that we can relearn.
And relearn.
Right? You have the right conditions or support. I mean, I love that story you just shared. It's really beautiful. Like, there's opportunity, even if you're listening right now and you're feeling really disconnected from your own creativity, or you're having your own memories of maybe a younger time in life where you had access to things, that all hope is not lost. We can relearn and get support to re-engage with our creative life.
Yes. We are inviting you here today. If nobody else in your life is inviting you, we are inviting you. I think because it is so important, again, to our healing processes. And if you listen to our first episode on zoochosis and enculturated trauma, I think that's one of the things that we need to recognize is, gosh, our bodies and our spirits have gone through so much in our lifetimes. And we're not going to be able to get rid of the stuff that is coming at us or we're going through, but rather we can metabolize it. And yeah, boy, is creativity a really important way of doing that.
Essential. I would say it's essential. I'm also just wanting to sort of name too that, and maybe this will become part of our ponder point at the end, but, you know, what do people even think of when you think of creativity, right? You know, because I think of, you know, gardening, building, you know, baking, taking of food or a vegetable and transforming it into something else, you know, things that we do in our everyday life, like our everyday existence, that have this sort of like alchemical process that's happening where one thing's going from one state into another. And it doesn't always have to be like, let's sit down and, you know, make space for creativity. Sometimes it's like, how do we even tune into the ways in our daily life that we're engaging in creative processes that we may be even taken for granted.
Yeah, just even taking kind of an assessment. Thank you for shooing that bug away from my face right now. That's wonderful. Have a friend like that, everybody, who will move a bug away from your mouth as it's coming at you. Taking a little bit of an assessment of the things that you are already engaged in that maybe fit those three categories of imagination or divergent thinking or insight. But also I would add, is there a sense of flow or a flow state that you get into? A sense of awe and wonder? And also, is there a mindfulness quality to it? I know that when I'm gardening outside, those states of being can it can come upon me there. And I think gardeners and people who are plant caretakers, there is a lot of creativity that goes into that, and imaginal. And you've got to have some hope, right? that what you're doing is going to have this effect in the future on these plants.
As a budding farmer, I have so much hope. my crops will A, make it into the dirt, and then B, survive. I'm working on it.
Yes, it does. And we don't have all the answers. We don't need to be as creative as like recreating the wheel every time, right? Like this podcast, for example, right? I think we have taken the approach of this first season is the first pancake. If you're making pancakes and you get that first pancake out, if you've ever had this experience that the first one doesn't quite turn out the way that you had envisioned it would, but does that stop you from making the rest of the pancakes? You just throw out the batter and say, that's it, I'm never making pancakes again? No, you put some jelly on it, you put a little butter on it, you eat that pancake, you get rid of it, and then you move on to the next pancake.
That's right.
So first pancakes, they can be hard to not judge ourselves. But we didn't invent pancakes. We're taking a recipe and then maybe we make it something of our own. Right? That is still a creative process.
Still a creative process. One that comes up for me too is I love coloring. I really love coloring. And that kind of, for me, has that kind of meditative, slowing, methodical quality to it. And I don't always have a coloring book at hand when I want to color. And so I've always made those kind of like, those squiggly lines where the lines are all crossing over each other and you never quite know what you're going to get. And, but it's still enjoyable and it doesn't have to be extravagant. It's simple and easy and paper and pen and that can be it. Even if you don't use color, you can use shapes or lines or dots or, yeah.
Yeah. And I think for some people it's rearranging furniture or, it could just be, like you said, pen and paper, something as simple as that. It doesn't need to be super extravagant. And that if you do have some bigger aspiration, like maybe your creative process is to write a novel or to make a movie, you don't actually have to do all the parts. I'm not actually suggesting you use AI. I don't think that's always, maybe we can, that's another topic. But that you can incorporate other people into your process. Things like coming together in creative groups, like writing groups or groups that are safe to bounce ideas around and get feedback. Those are ways of collaborating. You may have the big picture idea, but don't know what to do with the details. And so there are other people out there who like to work with the details. They like to do the sound editing. They like to do the making of the whatever, writing the script. You don't have to do it all. You can still participate in the creative aspects that you like. And it's not always about the product, right? I think a lot of times we've commoditized like our creative processes, and I think that's sometimes when people stop doing the thing, like practicing their music or painting. Like if they can't see it, or their parents or friends can't see what they're going to quote unquote do with it, it stops their process of it.
Yeah, it can be one place where it begins to shift. Right? I want to back up a little to what you were talking about around like we don't have to do all the parts or, and add to that. It's like, we don't have to do all the parts. And you definitely don't have to always create alone. Right? I think creativity and expressions of creativity are also such a beautiful place where community can come together, or a common experience that a lot of people might be having. There can be a way to do art or creation or even cooking a meal together in community that holds this deeper container as well, that it can be a collective expression. Yeah.
I think of the healing power of music and some of these fires and communities locally down in Los Angeles that just got devastated, and how there have been some community concerts that have also been fundraisers. And I think, they serve so many purposes to regather again, remember, right? Yeah, being together and healing together with forms of creativity and creating an experience, collaborative experience.
Right. I was also thinking of ways that it helps us really like metabolize really big or meaningful experiences as well. I'm reminded of, at the end of grad school and the type of school that I went to, we all went through it as a cohort. And so there was, a lot of very deep and meaningful relationships that were forged over years and years. And, you're coming to the end of an experience like that. It's like, how do you metabolize all that's been gained? And there's some really beautiful ceremonies that we did and ways to integrate that. And each person had an opportunity to kind of share any kind of creative expression. And for me, the thing that I shared with our group is, I play the guitar and I sing, and I don't always do that in public. But it was an opportunity to do that in this community. And it was such a powerful experience. For me, I felt the collective of the group, getting to share and metabolize parts of this long journey. And one other thing that we created at one time is, we had some music on and we created an art image together. Each person went up to the canvas and, added something to the page. And then the next person came and added something to the page. And, no one knew what this drawing was going to turn out to be, or no one had a plan for it, but it was, to me, that really felt like such a collective experience of everyone being represented and everyone contributing and offering whatever their part was. And this beautiful image emerged that, had every person in there. And so I think, and it's not like one person was drawing a particular sketch, right? So this is where we're talking about, you don't have to, maybe know how to draw a, realism or a life, something that looks like something you'd see in real life, but it's just the process of engaging in that. And when we can join in that flow, there's so much power and healing and access, metabolizing that can occur in a beautiful expression of community.
Yeah, and I think what you're describing is not just vital for healing and for rites of passage, which is a whole other topic of, we don't have a lot of those rites of passage built into our society right now. And there's something really important about those and notating them. But also for problem solving, because we are in times right now with really complex, complicated problems in our society. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of kind of, systems that are calling for our attention in all kinds of different ways. It's overwhelming what is happening, very scary for a lot of us. And there are big consequences that are, happening all around us to environment and societies and families and our own health. And these are big, scary things that are going to need problem solving. And we've talked about this before, symptom management versus problem solving. These problems are complex and systemic and a little hard to get a hold of sometimes. And they're going to require us to have that kind of diversity of thinking. And, there's an example out there of why diversity is important when we're in problem solving modes. And somebody brought up an example of where do you store your ketchup? And there are some cultures who store their ketchup in the cupboards outside of the refrigerator, and there are some who store their ketchup in the refrigerator. And if you're cooking something and you need to have ketchup, but you don't have it on hand, you're going to want to think of something that is similar to that. And if you are an individual who stores your ketchup in a cupboard, you may think of something that is in the cupboard that might replace the ketchup. And if you are somebody who stores in the refrigerator, you might think of something in the refrigerator that would substitute for that. And so we get all these creative kinds of divergent thinking that will be necessary as we move forward as a collective. And we can think of nature as creative and adaptive. And there's so many ways and examples that happens in nature, and the adaptive qualities that we can aspire to and be inspired by.
Yeah, I want to just add to what you were saying about the divergent problem solving with creativity too. It makes me think of our imagination, and a lot of times when we're working with problems that maybe aren't having good solutions or the outcomes that we're hoping for, or they're not working for us in the way that we need them to, we're really being asked to imagine something oftentimes that doesn't even yet exist or that we have not yet explored. And being able to think creatively or lean into imagination, which I think is really closely tied to creativity. Until we can imagine it, we can't create it, right? It can't come to be yet. And so another way that we can, that's what's important about fostering our creativity and fostering our imagination is, the process of leaning into that and seeing what emerges. And if it feels sometimes maybe strange, or what are people going to think about this, or we don't have any context for that, great. That's great. We want that.
I have another quote for one that's attributed to Albert Einstein. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole to make sure that it absolutely is, so you could take this with a grain of salt. But here it is. I never made one of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking. And for a whole, society that kind of bases everything off of rational thinking, you would think, there is a time and place for rational thinking, of course. But when we're starting to think about things that are novel and creative and new discoveries, sometimes we have to go beyond those boundaries for that. I also want to circle back around to empathy and meaning of life, because we are humans and we are meaning makers of our own lives and our societies and our communities and of the world. And I think one of the things that lacks is that imagination. If you cannot imagine a person who doesn't look like you or talk similarly to you or eat the same things as you or even has the same values as you, it is hard for humans to even humanize another person. And this may be a consequence of not developing that creative thinking. This isn't just a moral stance. This is a limitation. We've reached our limitations sometimes to be able to humanize other people who we can't imagine are also trying to live in the world and making meaning out of their own lives, and validating that experience.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know where else to go with that right now. But
A truer case could not be told for why creativity is not a luxury. It's essential.
absolutely. I have one more quote here by the Indian philosopher Osho. It says, "To be creative means to be in love with life. You can be creative only if you love life enough that you want to enhance its beauty. You want to bring a little more music to it, a little more poetry to it, a little more dance to it."
That's beautiful.
Yeah, as we continue to walk through this sculpture garden together and enjoy other people's expression of their creativity and who they are and their gifts to us, do you have any ponder points?
I would say the one that's sort of coming to mind right now is maybe twofold. It's like, where might you bring your attention and awareness to areas in your life where creativity exists that we might not be naming, and how do you claim your own creativity? What might that look like for you?
I love that. I am going to add another one to that, a ponder point, which is, what are the myths that you might have about your own creativity? Are there aspects of you that you would be able to name as creative, and other aspects that have yet to be named creative in your life that maybe deserve that label?
Love it. Okay.
Well, thank you. And if you enjoyed this, we thank you so much for listening and being part of this community. And hopefully you're able to feel connected to all of this. We'll leave resources in the show notes and ways for you to connect with us on our website. We'd love to hear from you in different ways and what you're doing through social media and all those other ways where we connect. And on our next episode, we'll be talking about birds everywhere. We'll be at Fort Flagler, Washington. And until then, wander well.